Hello everyone, Luciano Oliveira, Oliveira Lawyers. We are hopefully starting one more live stream. If you are here with us, please let me know in the chat window. I want to know if you can see us on YouTube and Instagram, right? And I can tell we are working well, just fine on Instagram. Not sure if you guys can see us on YouTube, so please let me know if you can see us on YouTube. All right, 9 Virgo, we can see you on Instagram. Thank you, 9. Thank you for confirming. I'm waiting for a confirmation regarding YouTube. I don't have any feedback so far. Hopefully we're gonna get a message soon. Let me type here. Can you see the stream on YouTube? So I'm typing on the chat window that hopefully is gonna show on YouTube. All right. Thank you, 9. 9 said he's gonna check on YouTube. I appreciate. Just trying to check if we're good on YouTube. As soon as we have a green light, we're gonna continue. And it looks like it is live now. It looks like we're just fine. All right. I see we have Alexander Jonathan. Yes, good on YouTube. Thank you. And thank you, Alexander. About the sound, I was basically forgetting my mic, but now I can see messages on Instagram. I can see messages on YouTube. And Treron, thank you for confirming, Treron. Jonathan, I see you, Luciano, but you must not see my message on. Yeah, now I can see the messages as well. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. And we are just getting started. And as usual, if you're here with us live, you have an option to ask questions or suggest a topic of your interest to be discussed live. And today we have a Brazil soccer match with Scotland. I just hope you don't ask questions about soccer. I'm not really a big soccer guy. Yes, I do watch every single match in which we have the Brazil team. But other than that, I don't know much about the individual soccer players. All right, let's take a look at the news. Let's see what's going on in Brazil. Sharing here my screen, and you see here like there is this header here, and naturally, you know, like soccer is always a big topic, a big conversation topic in Brazil. And, you know, like I just got a message from an employee and she was asking, listen, are we going to go home like earlier today? And that's such an interesting reality. So in Brazil, companies, they are going to adapt their schedule so employees can, you know, go home and watch the matches with their families. Now, of course, it's going to depend on the time of the day. If you would be like an early game, companies would tell their employees to come later. Now, if it is a game that is going to be like, you know, in early evening, employees would also expect to go home a little bit earlier, just because like in big cities in Brazil, traffic is just like unbelievable. And in Sao Paulo, for instance, it's not uncommon for someone to commute for a couple of hours between downtown and like a neighborhood that is kind of far away, right? And that's acceptable by Brazilian standards. And so people would like to go home earlier in order to be able to watch the game. Okay, and aside of the games, we have this heading here. As you may imagine, we're still talking about Banco Master several months after like the first news about Banco Master. And Banco Master nowadays, the way we see it, is like a big fraud event involving not only like the financial segment of Brazil, but particularly the political class. And as we told you before, not only the political class, but even, even justices of the Brazilian Supreme Court had like an entanglement with this bank, and particularly this folk over here who was the president of Banco Master, right? And now that we have like the upcoming presidential election, like different sides of the aisle, like they're trying to blame or to push or to shame the other side, saying, you know what, like you were entangled with Banco Master and Banco Master's president. But it looks like, this was not like a something specific to a political party or one side of the aisle. It was something actually spread out throughout the political class. Very sad state of things, but at least this is being uncovered regarding punishment. Like some people are being arrested, of course. I mean, the president of Banco Master was arrested. But the really big people involved in this case, unfortunately, it doesn't look like much is happening. But yes, that's it. And then we have more about the World Cup. Hendrick is like a major Brazil player. He wasn't playing before, and then everybody in Brazil was asking for Hendrick to be, allowed to play, and he played like in the last match, and it looks like it was a very good performance. Yes, another interesting, piece of news is this one about the Brazilian aerospatial or aerospace sector trying to also, secure investment. And they're saying, listen, now that SpaceX has took off, right? What about Brazilian companies related to the space sector? So that's the news you have over here. And that's it for today in terms of news. Let's remind you about Remax Nomad States. Remax Nomad States is a partner of ours. They've been providing very good, solid service to clients of Oliveira Lawyers. They are a real estate agency located in Rio de Janeiro, but they actually work throughout Brazil. We have clients who bought properties in Santa Catarina, in Salvador, Bahia, Fortaleza. Naturally, like many people buying in Rio de Janeiro, right? Like Rio de Janeiro is the main destination typically for foreign citizens buying real estate in Brazil, but there are, of course, many other locations, Minas Gerais, São Paulo, with lots of transactions. And there you go. If you want to take note of their contact information, you can get in touch with them directly and see if they can help you. All right, let's take a look at what we have in terms of participation. Jonathan, what is the best online bank apps for an expat seeking residency in Brazil? I have Wise and Nomad. All right, Jonathan. So typically, when we're talking about money apps, like we're talking about two different situations or two different types of needs. One, it's gonna be like smaller amounts, and for smaller amounts, I think Wise is super solid. PayPal is very popular in Brazil, right? There is also Western Union. Like Brazilians, they like a lot Western Union. There are hundreds, I'm not sure if thousands already, but at least hundreds of Western Union agencies in Brazil. So Western Union is super solid. Wise, I use Wise myself many times. But for larger amounts, typically you need to work with a currency exchange bank. And the reason is because up to $10,000, the Brazilian Central Bank has a rule that banks are not going to need to handle really thorough due diligence, like compliance checks. So of course, they still need to monitor. For instance, if someone is using either Wise or Western Union or any money app that you can potentially think of, and if they're sending a lot of remittances trying to stay under the radar, there is a financial concept for that. It's called smurfing. Smurf, like from the 80s cartoon, like those blue folks. That's where the term came from. Like smurfing means you're going to send a bunch of small folks, in this case, like small remittances, trying to stay under the 10,000 and avoid, like further complication. That typically triggers compliance checks from those money apps, and then they can freeze your account, or, like say you reached your limit, come back a number of months from now. So, yes, for smaller amounts, very solid Wise. There is Remitly as well, PayPal. Many people, Jonathan, they're going to use, let's say, if you are from the US and you are in Brazil, you could very easily use your credit card from the United States, like Master and Visa. They are pretty much accepted everywhere. American Express, not so much, like many places are going to accept American Express, but not as popular as Visa and MasterCard. So if you have a card, you can basically just pay things with the card. Now, you would potentially want to check with your US card issuer if they are going to charge you a per transaction fee, right? There are typically two types of fees. One fee is going to be the currency exchange, and typically you're not going to be able to avoid that because guess what? You are spending Brazilian reais, but your account in the US is in US dollars, right? So you're going to face some level of loss with the currency exchange no matter what. But the real problem is that some banks, on top of the currency exchange rate, or they're dinging your money with the currency exchange rate, on top of that, they're going to charge you a transaction fee. And if that's the case for your card, then I don't recommend you using. I heard about some banks charging like a $5 transaction fee, and naturally that would be impractical from a cost perspective. But if you have something, I believe like Apple, the Apple credit card doesn't charge. American Express for sure does not charge, because American Express typically targets the traveler type of customers. So American Express doesn't charge a per transaction fee. Apple credit card, I'm almost sure it doesn't charge as well. So credit card is another way. Now for larger amounts, then you need to work with a bank. That's going to be my recommendation. I don't recommend you ever using the so-called agencies, right? When you are in São Paulo, when you are in Rio de Janeiro, when you are in Florianopolis, like you are walking around and you're going to see currency exchange, right? And when you go there, it's going to be an agency, right? So it's a small company, a small firm operating in the currency exchange segment. And, whenever they are active, things, typically work. But you have two problems, right? One problem is when they go out of business. If they go out of business, you have money in their hands. This money could potentially disappear along with the company. And the second problem is many times they do things not by the books, right? And you could be entangled in an investigation down the line if they are doing dollar transactions outside of the Brazilian central bank mandate, right? Whenever they are dealing, let's say formally, they are going to be collecting taxes, paying the government, so there is friction. They make less money. Now, if they just do the exchange by themselves without reporting to the government, they are going to make more money. But of course, this is going to be illegal. And, typically banks are not going to ever think about doing something like that. But the smaller players, the so-called agencies, right? Like in Portuguese, we call agência de câmbio. Yes, you do hear many horror stories about agências de câmbio. So if you have, I don't know, if you just have like cash and you need to exchange, I don't have any issues with agência de câmbio because they're convenient, they're close by, you go there, you took a look at the rate, you say, well, I'm not losing that much money, you go and you get Brazilian currency, that's good. Now, for you to transfer money cross-border with a agência de câmbio, not good. All right? So, yes, Jonathan, there was some of the things I wanted to comment. Jonathan is saying, along with my passport, what other documents do I need now for my entry this time around? What's the cost of needed documents? Jonathan, to entry... sounds like the U.S. government financial institutions. Yeah. Now, you're saying along with my passport, what other documents do I need now for my entry? So you're talking about entering Brazil. If you're talking about entering Brazil, next time you're coming to Brazil, you're probably talking about the e-visa, Jonathan. Okay, so you need an e-visa to enter Brazil. Unless, of course, you have something like the digital nomad or the retirement or the real estate investor, either visa or residency, right? Remember about the distinction. Visa is issued abroad outside of Brazil, and the residency is always granted when you are physically in Brazil. Brazil typically allows for people to apply either abroad or within Brazil. There are distinctions in terms of procedure. There are upsides and there are downsides, and this is going to depend on your specifics and the track that you are pursuing. All right, Jonathan, so can I keep using my Bank of America Visa card for all transactions? Jonathan, question for you. Have you ever checked if they would charge you a per transaction fee? Because if they do, of course, I'm not going to recommend it. But if Bank of America allows you to use your card in Brazil without such a fee, yes, absolutely. You could use for pretty much almost everything, right? Sometimes, let's say if you are at the beach, right? Like if you're enjoying yourself and maybe, there's someone walking by selling, I don't know, like some type of, a beverage or, some drinks or, some finger food, and you want to try it, typically they are not going to accept cards, right? There should be a cash transaction, or Pix. Pix is absolutely a blast in Brazil, and Pix is a payment platform. Some people would compare Pix to Zelle in the United States, but Pix is like, years, if not decades ahead of the Zelle concept, right? But it's more like, just to give you a somewhat understanding, it is a feature that's going to run along with your checking account in Brazil. All right, Jonathan. Another possibility for you to get started in your financial, a journey in Brazil is to open a non-resident bank account. There is one bank that we partner with, like they are formal partners of ours, is Banco Rendimento. And we typically assist our clients with opening a non-resident bank account with Banco Rendimento. And through this account, you can pay things through Pix, which is like the Brazilian Zelle on steroids. Proudly, I'm staying in Dubai. Can I get a CPF tax number? I have filed the form online, but don't know what's next. Proudly, if you are a foreign citizen, the form is not going to do much good for you. The form is typically for an application. For a Brazilian can apply just using the form and like an email address. They can apply from abroad. For a foreign citizen, if you are in Dubai, you would use this form and other documents to set up an appointment with the Brazilian embassy in Abu Dhabi, right? That's an embassy we typically work with a certain frequency. We have many clients from the United Arab Emirates, so we know the place. And yes, there is this Brazilian embassy in Abu Dhabi, and you could apply. You need to schedule an appointment with the embassy, and you could go over there. Something else you can use proudly. I'm gonna write down over here is Brazil Safe Closing. Right, I think they are charging about 1,000 reais, which should be $200 or 275. I'm also gonna write on Instagram, Brazil Safe Closing. So they could potentially, right? It depends on your specifics. Handle the application in Brazil based on a power of attorney that you would grant them for this specific need. Okay, we also assist with the CPF, but we don't typically offer this service as a standalone service. We think it's a big commitment, right, to get someone else a Brazilian tax ID, and therefore we're gonna do that only for clients who are using our services for something else. So let's say if you are buying a property, if you are applying for the Brazil a retirement visa, all of those things, we typically also help you with the CPF piece. But if you just want the CPF proudly, then yes, you could potentially get the CPF issued in Abu Dhabi. Proudly also says, I found some good bungalows in Campinas. I'm gonna guess you're saying Campinas, right? Almost there. Campinas, proudly. Let me write down over here. Tell me if that's the right one. Campinas, right? For 400,000, I'm interested to buy. How can I buy? Can your firm do the legal process? Yes, proudly. That's exactly what I was saying. And I didn't see your message about the real estate. I just saw the first one, and that's why I said, go to Brazil Safe Closing. But if you are interested in a representation to help you with the acquisition, listen, we will take care of the CPF, right? Like, you don't need to worry about CPF. CPF is the least of your worries, proudly. In Brazil, like there are, and actually, everywhere, right? It's not just Brazil. There are lots of games played by people, particularly when you are a foreign citizen. So not surprisingly, every single week, someone is going to approach us for being deceived in a real estate transaction. And unfortunately, after that happened, guess what? It's really, really difficult to get your money back, right? Because people who, defraud others, they don't typically keep your money at the bank, right? Like they're typically shielded from legal procedures. So most cases, unfortunately, they are hopeless. And the right approach is for you to be safe in the first place. Okay, and another distinction, probably, I don't know how it works exactly in the UAE, even though we have a bunch of clients from there. But in the United States, typically there is title insurance, meaning that if you buy a property and there is a legal problem with the title, meaning you bought from Andrew, but Andrew was just pretending he was the owner, paperwork was fake, and I don't know. Guess what? When you pay the title insurance, which typically in the US is something around $3,000 to $4,000, if you have a problem with the title, guess what? The insurance company, they are gonna, make you whole, meaning that whatever money you lost in the transaction, they are gonna refund you. You don't have that in Brazil. Like in Brazil, if you end up buying a bad property, you are on your own and you can lose your shirt. So what we do, like we do several rounds of due diligence throughout the life cycle of the transaction, but most importantly, even before you get into a purchase agreement, and we help you throughout the transaction until you attend the closing, which you could attend either in person or remotely. And we make sure that after you attend the closing, the updated title records are issued showing you as the owner of record, right? So we provide all the service. We also help you with the money piece. Believe it or not, Brazil, is very, has this kind of archaic attitude in terms of monies entering the country, and you would expect the opposite, right? But believe it or not, very difficult to send large amounts to Brazil. So we partner with those major currency exchange banks that the expat community many times know about as the leading banks in this segment to facilitate the money movement as well. All right, Proudly, if you're serious about the acquisition, I strongly recommend you scheduling a consultation. Typically for investment in Brazil real estate, I am the one who's gonna take the consultation. So you can take a look at the options over here. I'm gonna share a link. I'm gonna share a link for you to book a consultation whenever time is right for you. All right, just shared the link. That's the link from Squarespace, which is a major provider of booking services. I'm also gonna provide our own page, which also has the link for the scheduling. All right, Proudly. All right, just sent you, just go ahead, schedule the consultation. We're going to be happy to assist you, Proudly. James Rochas, bom dia, amigo. Bom dia, James. When I complete the União Estável process with Polícia Federal, do I get a PR card for 9 years? James, there are two possibilities, right? And the police, the federal police, they're going to decide typically on the spot. If they like your paperwork, they are typically gonna give you the PR. The PR is like por prazo indeterminado or for an undetermined period of time. That's the funny way of saying permanent. And the card would show 9 years, right? The 9 years just means you need to replace the card every 9 years because your face changes. That's the point. Now, if they don't like your paperwork, they are gonna give you just 2 years. Okay, let's say if they have a suspicion that this may be a fraudulent type of marriage, like you just got, or not the marriage, right? A fraudulent união estável. Let's say you just got this união estável done. They look at the partners, they think there is something funky in there. They could very well give you for 2 years, okay? Now, let's say if it is a união estável with children, okay, that's gonna be 9 years, 99% of the time. But listen, if you don't have children, if you just got the união estável, there is also a chance they are gonna give you the card for just 2 years, okay? Now, another important thing for people to understand, which is typically a misconception, is that many people believe because they are getting, right, like the prazo indeterminado, many people, they are going to interpret as something that they are going to be entitled to it no matter what. And then guess what? They finish the união estável down the line, they divorce, they sell the property, and that's not how it works. If you lose the basis for that particular immigration benefit, you're no longer entitled to it. And from a legal perspective, you would be immediately out of status. Okay, of course, until the immigration takes notice of that fact, like your card is going to be considered valid. But as soon as they take notice, right, let's say there is a divorce, união estável is no longer in place, once they get notice, your card is going to be voided, okay? So very important for people to understand that nuance, which it doesn't look like many people understand. All right, let's see what else we have. I'm trying to find our Instagram users. All right, Instagram. Not sure if we are still live on Instagram, live streaming. All right, not this one. Let me see this other one. Believe it or not, all right, I just found the window. Sorry about that. Let's take a look at Instagram. Let's answer MF Nomad. Where in Brazil are you seeing the most growth for real estate rentals or Airbnb? All right, MF Nomad. Difficult to compare to give a specific area, right? Like, I mean, we don't have like it's interesting that in Brazil we don't have good stats like we have in the US, right? In the United States, you have the MLS system, which basically tracks every single thing that happens in the real estate market. We don't have such a thing, so it's more on a observation basis. And one of the most active states is going to be Santa Catarina. Okay, in Santa Catarina, you have like Florianópolis, Camboriú, Porto Belo, Praia de Bombinhas. And it looks like there is a lot of appetite for new properties coming from foreign citizens, right? And Santa Catarina is a very, it represents a very specific combination of, solid real estate, safety standards that are better than the national average. You are by the beach, okay? A lot of people interested in developing a good society, right? Like, I mean, people who are not only there to extract things, but to contribute to building, a community. Okay, so this changes the relationship dramatically, in my view. And many foreign citizens, they are gonna be after this specific combination of factors. Okay, Rio de Janeiro is unbeatable in terms of attraction to foreign citizens. Even though it's crowded already, right? Like if you are in Copacabana, anywhere you are, like if you're gonna have a breakfast in the morning, it's almost impossible for you to sit down anywhere and not hear a different language being spoken, like a couple of tables from you, right? So this is Copacabana, this is Rio. But Rio is a massive city, right? Like Rio is a 9 million people city. So it looks like it doesn't matter how crowded it is with foreign citizens already. There is always more room and always more foreign citizens pursuing Rio de Janeiro. In terms of growth, let's say more of an opportunity than a current place, I would say the Northeast, like particularly for people who don't have as much resources to invest. They're typically going to look at the Northeast of Brazil. Prices in the Northeast, they are substantially lower than what you're going to see in Santa Catarina and Rio de Janeiro. And so they represent like opportunities, right? Like there are more opportunities than a growth that was priced already. Now there is, unfortunately, right, there is also the concern about organized crime, right? Like organized crime is a reality in Brazil. But listen, we have clients throughout Brazil, okay, and everybody is living their lives. Like, I mean, as long as you don't go mess with organized crime, as long as you don't, get involved in drugs like prostitution, typically you don't even see the so-called organized crime. But organized crime, very interestingly, the organized crime, the main organizations, they come from, guess where? Like Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. And they were exported like to the northeast of Brazil. And they took over like, many regions of the northeast. But again, like, I mean, many times you are in a city, there is a presence of organized crime. And again, as long as you don't go after drugs and prostitution, this type of stuff, chances are you're not going to be aware of their presence, all right? But that's something you don't typically see as much like in the south of Brazil, like Santa Catarina, Rio Grande do Sul, because of the strong community ties. Organized crime has, is not able to grow as much as it does elsewhere. All right. Okay. All right. There was MF Nomad. All right. Let's see. We have Hugh McDonald. Hugh, is there lots of real estate growth in Floripa, BC, which stands for Balneário Camboriú, and Itapema? So Hugh, I don't know if you just heard what I said or if that was written before I explained about Santa Catarina. But yes, like in Santa Catarina, this development is non-stop. Floripa is an island, but guess what? It's a huge island. And even though many parts of the island are developed already, there is still a lot of room for growth in Floripa. Balneário Camboriú, the same thing is like, many people are going to call Balneário Camboriú the Dubai of Brazil. They have now a plan for like, I think, one apartment tower that could be like the tallest in the world, right? And they are planning, like for very interesting features, like, those penthouses with like, a garage elevator so you can drive in and take your car up to your apartment or, a penthouse. So this is like a Balneário Camboriú, right? Like Itapema is also growing a lot. Like Itapema, I know, the first time I visited Itapema, I was, I think, 12 years old. And it was amazing already, not in terms of development, more in terms of nature. Nowadays, Itapema is combining both nature and real estate, okay? But that's pretty much Santa Catarina here. And like whenever people are in doubt, like whenever they are uncertain, I say, listen, go take a look. Go take a look in Santa Catarina, and I think it's a must, right? Like if you are unsure, Santa Catarina is always a good contender for your choices. All right, let's see what else we have. We have James Rochas. Obrigado. What happens if someone gets 2 years, again renew after 2 years for another 2 years? James Rochas, so if they give you 2 years, typically after those 2 years, they would move you to prazo indeterminado. Okay, so the first 2 years is more like, to give it some time, to say, you know what, let's take a look if they are still together 2 years down the line. And if you are, next time, most probably they would give you the prazo indeterminado, okay? And it's never guaranteed, right? Like, I mean, just because you got 2 years, it doesn't mean necessarily you're gonna get the 90 years next time. But that's what it typically happens, because then they say, well, all right, this time, like you guys being together for this amount of time, and if you're still together, yes, guess what? It looks like something legit to me, and they're gonna give you, most probably, not guaranteed, the 9 years. All right, James. General Principal, good afternoon, Mr. Oliveira. How are you? Good to see you here, General Principal. Another question about common law marriage. If a man has a child with a woman he's not married to, does this guarantee her chance of claiming common law marriage in court? General Principal, in my opinion, not at all. Okay, like just because you had a child, it doesn't mean you are in a common law marriage. Common law marriage typically, right? Common law marriage typically involves, and I'm not talking about união estável, all right? So let's make this distinction a bit more clear, otherwise it's not going to be helpful to you guys. So in Brazil we call it união estável, and there are two kinds of união estável. There is one união estável that you're going to get written or deeded in a cartório. That união estável, it's similar to the civil union in the United States. And then there is a second type of união estável that is more typical of the common law marriage. So união estável, when you go to the registry, you are basically getting like paperwork to legally reflect the união estável. This one is similar to the civil union in the United States. You don't marry, but for the purpose of assets and rights and obligations, you are saying, yes, I didn't marry, but guess what? It's the same thing as a marriage. So that's the civil union. The second type is the common law marriage. In the common law marriage, it goes like this. You have zero paperwork. You don't have anything. And nobody knows legally about your relationship with that partner, right? In General Principal's case, that would be with a lady, okay? And then how this is gonna happen? It's gonna happen like this. Maybe you are dating a Brazilian lady, I don't know, for 3 years, and then, after 3 years you split. You say, you know what, like, I'm not enjoying this relationship anymore. Let's, call it quits. And when you do that, she's gonna go to the court and she's gonna file a claim for união estável. So in this case, you never got the paperwork in the first place, but the lady, she's going to the court and asserting a união estável. So this is the typical case of common law marriage. There was never paperwork, but there was a relationship strong enough for the court to assess your partner's rights against you. Okay, so in this scenario, that's the second type of união estável. That's the união estável that is going to be found by a judge, right? Now, this judge, he's going to be looking into the relationship, right? Not only if you have children or not, okay? And let's say if you just, went out with this Brazilian lady once and you had a child, that doesn't mean that there is a common law marriage. Now, let's say if you're going out with this lady for 2 years and you have a child, I think it is fair to assume that there was a common law marriage, even if you're not living in the same house. But just because this relationship was long and substantial enough to trigger the understanding of a common law marriage existing, okay? And in the past, judges would try to find shortcuts to determine when a common law marriage would exist or not. There was a time in which people would say, yeah, you know, the timeline is like 12 months. Like if you are 11 months, no união estável. If you are at 13, yes, união estável. Nowadays, the Supreme Justices, they have been very clear that there is no single parameter or standard for you to be found in a common law marriage. A judge must contemplate the totality of facts surrounding your relationship to decide if there is a common law marriage or not, meaning there is no fixed period of time. There is no need that you've been living in the same house together. There is no such a need. And there is no need for you to have a child. And on a similar line, just because you have a child, it doesn't mean that automatically you're going to be found in a common law marriage, even though, yes, it could be an evidence that a common law marriage exists. All right, General Principal, I hope that was helpful. Proudly, sir, tell us some areas in Northeast where properties are cheap. Proudly, so the Northeast in general, right? Like the Northeast, it's more or less, it represents more or less the same type of price level. What is going to change the pricing is typically whether you are buying like at the capital, right? There are several capitals in the Northeast. And if you're buying, you know, real estate in a capital, naturally prices are going to be higher. And if you're buying like more in a tiny city outside of the capitals, prices are going to be lower. And of course, there are exceptions, okay? Let's compare, for instance, there is the state of Rio Grande do Norte, right? I'm going to write down over here, Rio Grande do Norte. And I'm going to write down Natal and Praia da Pipa, right? That's just to illustrate what I'm going to explain to you, right? So I'm writing down this on YouTube and Instagram, okay? So in Rio Grande do Norte, like Natal is the capital of the state of Rio Grande do Norte, which is in the Northeast. Natal is the capital, so there are well-developed neighborhoods with luxury penthouses, apartments, and so on. And this property is going to cost substantially more than anything that you're going to find outside of Natal. However, there are few exceptions in the state of Rio Grande do Norte, such as Praia de Pipa, right? Praia da Pipa. I'm writing here Praia da Pipa. So Praia da Pipa is a tiny community outside of Natal. I guess like an hour and a half, like depending on how you're driving, an hour and a half. And even though it's a tiny community, like you're gonna see amazing properties over there. So you have lots of foreign citizens who are gonna go to Praia da Pipa. They don't care the fact that you're not in a capital, that the city is tiny. They are still gonna spend a boatload of money into that small town, right? But that's more like an exception. In the Northeast, capitals, they are gonna be, you know, kind of similar in price ranges. And whenever you are outside of the capital, prices are gonna be substantially lower. All right, proudly. All right, James Rochas, and after 1 year with união estável, someone can apply for citizenship. It depends, James, it depends on whether you are on the 2 year or the 9 year, or better saying, the undetermined period track. Under the 2-year track, no, you cannot, because that's just a temporary residency. Now, under the 9-year, right, under the prazo indeterminado, yes, after 1 year, as long as you, speak at least an average Portuguese, you could apply for the Brazilian citizenship. All right, we have Aaron. Proudly, I have lived in the nice part of Campinas, Cambuí, for 2 years. My experience has been that there are safe neighborhoods and very dangerous ones in Campinas. Nice sharing, Aaron. Yes, that's that's common in many areas, like in Campinas, in São Paulo. There are parts of the city that are safe. There are parts that are not safe. Because Campinas is very close to São Paulo, I'm also going to mention about the cities of Vinhedo and Valinhos. And then I'm going to write here halfway, about halfway from São Paulo to Campinas, a bit closer to Campinas, right? And these are amazing cities, in my opinion, right? Like, I mean, I lived in the place in Vinhedo, and from every single place in which I ever lived, Vinhedo was by far the best, in my opinion. But there was something very specific to my style, right? And but Vinhedo is a small town. Is a 40-minute drive from São Paulo city, if you're driving in the weekend, right? If you're driving like during weekdays, then it could easily take you a couple of hours to go from São Paulo to Vinhedo. But I love the city. The city is amazing. Most of the places over there are going to be gated communities. There is a very strong sense of community everywhere. You make friends, like you have children at the same school, like you do things together. An amazing city, Vinhedo. Valinhos is very similar to Vinhedo. They are almost like twin cities, and they are both halfway from São Paulo to Campinas. Campinas also a pretty solid choice, just like Aaron said, pretty nice city. There is Universidade de Campinas, Unicamp, and there are many, companies. There are conveniences. So you don't stay in a city as big as São Paulo. You still have access to São Paulo. In the weekends, like it would be an hour and 10 minutes drive from Campinas to reach São Paulo. During weekdays, it could be 2 hours, 3 hours, God knows. But yes, Campinas is also a very interesting choice indeed. All right, let's see what else we have. Okay, we have here N01. Hi, please assess my question, sir. I naturalized in São Tomé. How does Brazil do citizenship path for CPLP members? And do I have to be born in São Tomé? N01, so this is like, something new, right? Because, let's start, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about over here. São Tomé and Príncipe is a tiny country. A tiny country like in an island, and they have like Portuguese as a spoken language. And now Brazil has a special immigration treatment for people coming from, Portuguese speaking countries. So the roadmap here is that some people, they're considering buying a passport in São Tomé and Príncipe, right? Which you can do, I think is $90,000. There are probably fees and costs, like for the immigration. Maybe you're going to spend $110,000 to buy the São Tomé Príncipe passport, which is a passport from a country that speaks Portuguese. And the idea is that just through this passport, the immigrant could come to Brazil, First thing, I would say for sure you can secure the residência por prazo indeterminado. So, they typically give you either, and we have clients from Portuguese-speaking countries who were able to secure the permanent residency from the get-go. Others are going to get it for 2 years. Okay, so there is discretion that's similar to União Estável. It depends on the eyes of the immigration officer in charge of your case. If you get it for prazo indeterminado, there is a clause in the Brazilian Constitution that says that Portuguese speaker citizens living in Brazil on a permanent basis, they could in just a single year applying for citizenship. All right. Now N01, that's as far as I go. We had several people asking about this route to us. We never had a single one who went forward, right? So I am unable to tell you what the outcome is going to be because those things, and just like in the United States and elsewhere, they are not written in details anywhere. The way that they are going to consolidate an understanding is when they actually happen in real life. So we're going to see how the authorities are going to adjudicate such case. Because if you think about it, like the reason why they are giving you like a fast track is because there is an assumption that you speak Portuguese. But I can tell, like in your case, you would not be speaking Portuguese. So how this is going to play out, like when you show up for an appointment, they are going to look at you and say, well, he comes from a Portuguese-speaking country, but he doesn't speak. So that was not the original intent of the law. So there is room for them here to cause you trouble. Now, that's as far as I'm going to go over here, N01, is that there is, room for trouble. And potentially, if you have a friction to secure either the permanent residency or the citizenship, is that you could potentially use the Brazilian Constitution as support for a legal suit to compel the Brazilian government to give you what you want. Okay, now if this is going to work or not, I cannot tell you, right? Until we have a first case to discuss. But very interesting topic, N01, and interesting that you brought this topic over here. All right, proudly, I need a safe area. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you. I need a safe area. I am in Campinas. All right. Yeah. Listen. Whenever you have like safety as a priority, my answer is typically look at the south. Look at the south. And very interesting, we have many cities from São Paulo state. Okay, this is not going to be São Paulo city. This is going to be cities that are more like in the countryside of the state of São Paulo that are among the safest cities in Brazil. So if you want to think, in a simplified manner, about options, if safety is your top priority, I would say look at Santa Catarina and look at the countryside of the state of São Paulo. All right, proudly. I hope that was helpful. Ellen, bom dia, senhor Oliveira. Bom dia, Ellen. I set funds by wire transfer to Santander Bank in advance of starting my R&M journey. I am unable to locate the funds in Brazil. Can you help? Ellen, so we cannot help you make the money reappear, right? What I can tell you is how this works, and that could bring some peace of mind to you. So typically the money doesn't disappear, right? Like it stays in the limbo for a short while. If you're using Chase as a bank, there is a procedure, and maybe you can try, you're not using, you didn't mention the bank that you're using as a source, But just to give an example, if that happens with a Chase Bank account, I would recommend the client to go to a branch, talk to the cashier, don't talk to the manager, don't talk to one of those assistants around, talk to the cashier, say, listen, I make a wire transfer, money never arrived in Brazil, and I need to recall the wire transfer. Okay, most of the time the cashier is going to say, yes, but do you know there are fees associated? You say, I'm fine with the fees, just get my money back. And then the cashier is going to initiate a recall of your wire transfer. And this recall is going to be transmitted to the next bank, which in turn is going to transmit to the next bank. So through this recall procedure, most of the time you're going to end up seeing your money in a couple of days down the line. Is it guaranteed? Of course it is not, but it is my experience, at least with clients' cases with Chase. Okay, now if you try to transfer to Santander, right, let's assume your bank in Brazil is Santander. If they cannot see the transfer, right, like, I mean, that's not their fault. You can compel Santander to make your money appear because the transfer was not, I assume, initiated by Santander. So typically the recall is going to start with the first bank in the sequence, okay? And how I can help you? Well, we can help you when you hire us in the first place, right? If you hire us to assist with a real estate transaction, if you hire us just to advise on the money remittance, that's when we can help you get things right at the first time. But after you get to this point, we don't even have a way, you know, to represent you before Santander or Chase Bank, right? At this point, you really need to work things out with your bankers. But I do hope that the information about the recall, which in my opinion is very counterintuitive, right? Like, I mean, most people would assume if you go to a Chase branch, you would speak to a branch manager. I don't know. My experience with branch managers in the US, not only for Chase Bank, are extremely disappointing, right? Like, I don't know how they recruit those folks, but I don't know. Like, I mean, many times I'm just starting a conversation, and I can tell this situation is hopeless. Now, if you're dealing with the cashier typically knows like the technical procedures, and they don't advise on it. So they are not going to tell you how long it's going to take. They don't tell you how it works, but they know the procedure, the recall procedure. So if you tell them very clearly, listen, I want to file a recall procedure for the wire transfer I sent on day blah, 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 there is a very good chance they are going to enter the recall into the system, and then this recall is going to trigger your money to be sent back from, you know, whatever place it's stuck in. Okay, again, not guaranteed, but that would be a good thing for you to consider. All right, Alan, and listen, if you still need help, like if you buy a property, if you need to send the money right, then you talk to us. We need to start this thing correct from the start. All right, Alan, we would be very happy to assist you with that. Jonathan, don't forget to hit like. Thanks, Luciano. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for reminding. Yes, if you're here with us, don't forget to like our live stream. That helps our business. I say thank you for that. And it also helps other people just like you to find our content. We have here, let's take a final one. Treron. Hi, what was the name of the safe closing company? I'm going to write over here, safe is Brazil Safe Closing. Brazil Safe Closing.com, right? It's written over there. And that's it for today. I want to give you all a heads up, right? Because of the new streaming software that we are using, we are no longer pre-scheduling those streams on YouTube, right? In the past, we would say, listen, go over there. You know, the streaming is already a schedule, and you can just basically click on notify me. But because it looks like our software streaming, sometimes is not gonna match the schedule we created in the past. Now our plan is to come here, continue to come over here on Wednesdays at 12:30, and basically just start the streaming. And you can access from YouTube, you can access from Instagram, you can access from Facebook, or you can access from LinkedIn. All right. So saying thank you all for your presence today, and hoping I'm gonna see you again next Wednesday, and wishing you a blessed rest of your day.